Hey, thanks so much for finding the video. Do us a favor. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. Be sure to leave your comment. We love to interact. Enjoy the video. With all the moves they made so far, have any of them surprised you?
Nothing that makes me just go, wow. All of them were relatively expected. You go into an off-season plan, if someone covering the team, you look at the contracts, you look at the numbers, and, you generally have an idea of who could be on the chopping block, if you will, who could get restructured, who could be, on the move in other ways or extended. I mean, I guess the biggest is probably the franchise tag to Marcus Williams, but that was probably more of it's a situation to buy a little time to get a long-term deal done and not risk losing him on the open market or at risk, him negotiating with other teams. But overall, I would say for the most part they are in line. I mean, I think it really illustrates just how much work they've had to do. I mean, they're still 31 over. I mean, to look at that list and the restructures in particular. I mean, you're restructuring guys to get $1.7 million in cap space. I mean, that's not a whole lot to receive to basically do a refinance, if you will. That's in Will Lutz's case. So it's all somewhat expected, but I think it also illustrates just how much work he's done.
We've assumed a lot of these were going to happen. I think we're assuming also that Ramchick and Lattimore get extended, and so those cap numbers come down. But as you mentioned, Sean, according to Spotrac, they're $30.2 million still over the cap. What else is a possibility aside from extending those two guys that's going to get them $30 million?
Well, it's three guys. I mean, because you're probably, if you can extend Marcus Williams before the start of the league new year, you would get more space there. If you get those three extensions, they're probably going to account for a lot of it. Just doing just the simple math of projection of how much cap space you could potentially receive, probably in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 million, and that's just a rough estimate. That's not anything guaranteed. You can also restructure a couple more guys. I'm actually a little surprised they haven't touched Michael Thomas' contract yet, because that's one you could probably get somewhere in the neighborhood of $8 to $9 million in cap space. And then it's really a matter of, okay, do you want to restructure more guys, or do you want to go ahead and just say goodbye to some players? We saw Malcolm Brown's name floated out there. That's generally a sign that they're at least thinking about. They're trying to get some kind of value for him, that they're at least thinking about releasing him. You get about $5 million in cap space there. Patrick Robinson, 2.6. But I mean, the key, they have to get those extensions done, because they can't carry those cap hits into the new year. It's just that they would have to literally restructure almost everyone on their and cut a lot more players to carry those three cap numbers into the new year.
He's on Twitter at Sean Fazende Fox 8. Emmanuel Sanders, one of the guys that they bid farewell to on Wednesday. So what is your best guess, Sean, to what they do there at receiver in 2021?
Yeah, well, they're going to address it. I mean, it's a deep draft at wide receiver. Sean Payton loves drafting wide receivers. He loves receivers. So there's certainly an option. They have a couple of young guys that they like, and Dewan Johnson, specifically Marquez Callaway, who really came on last year as an undrafted rookie and made the team when it was not easy to make a team as an undrafted rookie. So they like those guys. Are any of those guys number two? Probably not. And look, I think, and this is not just the Saints. I mean, look around the league today. I mean, there are players, very good players being cut. Depending on what the market looks like for those players, I would imagine the salaries aren't going to be quite as high in a lot of cases. Perhaps you can look and get a veteran. I would imagine that they at least go out and search for a veteran receiver as well. They got some young guys that they like, but obviously they're unproven. And look, like I said earlier, the draft is deep with receivers. This is the wide receiver draft this year, so you can probably get a good one. You probably have to get one in the first round to get a quality one. You probably get one in the second or third. So I think they're going to be okay. Generally, at that position, generally speaking, they've been able to overcome if they have a little bit of lack there. But I think there's some options available as well.
Where is, Sean, as you see it, the biggest need right now in free agency or the draft?
I mean, name the starting weak side linebacker. I can't do it. I mean, who's your starter right now at weak side linebacker? I mean, you got DeMario. You just cut Kwon. Who was your starting linebacker? Starting, not a depth guy, not a reserve. Starting linebacker. Obviously, you need a second wide receiver. Depending on what they do with Janoris Jenkins, who, from what I'm told, they're somewhat, he's right on that line. If they have to make a move, they will. But I think the preference would be to keep him, but you can go either way. You could potentially return your entire starting secondary next year, so you're pretty good there, at least front line. But to me, the most glaring hole is that weak side linebacker right now.
Is there a shot that Kwon's back at a lower figure?
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly think they would explore that, but it's not necessarily the salary cap, because he's not going to really command much on the open market. Given, look, it's unfortunate for Kwon, but it's followed him throughout his entire career. He is an injury-prone player, so coming off an Achilles tear, he's not going to be in a position to command a whole lot. So you could probably get him at a decent rate. The question would be, is he healthy? And even if you were to bring a Kwon Alexander back, it would be probably later in the process. And you would probably have to have some other guys available as a little bit of an insurance there, just because I don't know how he's going to react to that Achilles tear. So I wouldn't rule it out because I think he can come back at a very reasonable, cheap rate, because I just don't think he's going to be able to command much on the open market, given his injury history. But in the short term, I don't think that would happen until later down the road. I think in the immediate future, I think that position would get addressed at some point.
I got a couple more for you. Does tagging Marcus Williams essentially confirm what we all assumed, that the Saints just are going to have to say goodbye to Trey Hendrickson?
I mean, they had their choice, and they chose Marcus Williams. They're letting him test the market. Anytime the Saints are willing to let a player test the market, they are willing to lose him. I saw you mentioned that website SpotStrike. They do a market value, and they had his market value, I believe, at about $10 or $11 million average. Not incredibly expensive for an edge pass rusher, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion, but I do think it's probably more on the side of him not being here next year, just based off of what they decided to do, and there's probably a number that they have in mind, and who knows how expensive a guy like that will be on the open market as coming off a 13-sack season. But the Saints had their choice. They chose to protect Williams. So when you let a guy hit the market, you're basically letting those outside forces, get involved, and the Saints know that and are aware of that. So it's probably less probable that he's back next season.
What are you hearing about Sheldon Rankins?
Sheldon Rankins has been kind of really under the radar, considering he was a former first-round pick. That's a tough one because of his injury history. He's been productive, but he's had some tough luck when it comes to injuries. The 2018 season was obviously his best at 8 or 9 sacks. He's quick, but I think the Saints have, it's certainly the vibe I get is that they're going to let him test the market, obviously, because they didn't tag him, I guess, unless they come up with some kind of extension. But I could see a situation where he's elsewhere next year as well. I don't feel strongly that he would be back. Wouldn't completely rule it out because he's a former first-round pick, but you don't really feel a strong momentum to bring him back right now.
Okay. All right, before you go, here's the obligatory quarterback question. Drew Brees, what's he doing, and is his timeline here impacting the Saints at all? In that, how can you make a decision until you know what Brees' decision is?
Yeah, I think the Saints are operating under the situation that he's not back, and they're going to conduct their business as usual. And if Brees decides he wants to return and he is able to play, they would certainly entertain that possibility. I don't know if there's a time limit. I would think to do your team justice, you would probably have to make some sort of call before being at the beginning of the new league year, because if that's still hanging over the organization and you're not sure what he's doing, and all of a sudden Jameis Winston is out testing the market, and perhaps he could get frustrated with the lack of progress because of Brees, then I think that could certainly be an issue. Or if Brees is coming back, does that impact Jameis' decision at all to return to the Saints? So it's taken way longer than I would have expected. I can understand why he's a little agonizing over it a little bit. Still think he retires, but I would think that's got to be happening pretty soon here, just so the Saints can conduct proper business.
He's on Twitter at Sean Fazende, Fox 8. You make sure that you follow him on Twitter and follow all the stuff there. Read his stuff as well, fox8.com. Man, always appreciate a couple of minutes. Thanks for jumping aboard.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.